The Mengele Twins, The Tragedy and Triumph of Religion, by Hung Lee. In 1919, Adolf Hitler joined the German Workers' Party. He then gave highly effective speeches about a superior race called the Aryan race. Hitler saw the Aryan race as a perfect master race. Anything below it, like Jews, political opponents, Slavs, Roma, Jehovah's Witnesses, disabled people, homosexuals, and others were referred to as the most inferior races and were targeted. Shortly after Hitler became Chancellor, he blamed the Reichstag fire on the Communists and convinced President Hindenburg to sign a decree to silence Germany's political enemies with false arrest. Paramilitary groups prevented people from protesting and executed political opponents. On April 1, 1933, Hitler made several speeches that stated boycotting Jewish-run businesses was necessary for the Germans to recover from World War I. Then, 2 years later, the Nuremberg laws were established. The Jewish citizens were severely restricted, like how Jewish doctors were forbidden to treat anyone but other Jews, children who were Jewish were expelled from their schools, and travel was limited. Any Jewish-owned shop or business was trashed, broken, or stolen from. Sometimes people physically harassed the Jewish. The Jews were ordered to wear a yellow star badge, and homosexuals wore pink triangles. The Nazis used the term "the final solution" as a disguise for their plans to exterminate the Jewish race. These plans evolved into various acts of terror, disease, starvation, shootings, and mass murder in gas wagons or vans. Through these actions, over 2/3 of the Jewish population in Europe perished. 1 year later, President Hindenburg passed away from lung cancer. Hitler declared himself Führer, an absolute dictator. Joseph Mengele was born on March 16, 1911 in Ulm, Germany. In 1935, he received a PhD in physical anthropology from the University of Munich and a doctoral degree in genetic medicine. Then in 1937, he became a student of Dr. Ottmar, who was known for researching twins at the Institute for Biology and Racial Hygiene. At the institute, students studied human genetics in order to create the Aryan race. Mengele joined the Nazi Party in 1938. After serving in the army for 3 years, he returned to Germany and began work at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Anthropology, Human Genetics, and Eugenics. He received a promotion in 1943 and became an SS captain. By 1937, 42,000 concentration camps, ghettos, and other buildings meant to hold these inferior races in captivity were built. Once the inferior race was moved to the ghettos, Hitler ordered the Jews to create a Judenrat, which is what the Germans called a Jewish council. That council helped with regulating life at the ghettos. Jewish people in the ghettos were tricked and told that they were moving to another ghetto for labor, when instead they were taken to concentration or extermination camps. Some people in the Warsaw ghetto figured this out and held up for 28 days when the German soldiers tried to round them up and send them to the Treblinka death camp.
As we were holding on to Mother for dear life, a Nazi was running yelling at German twins, twins. We did not volunteer any information. He noticed us. Miriam and I looked alike and we were dressed alike. And he demanded to know from my mother if we were twins, and my mother didn't know what to say. She asked, "Is that good?" And the Nazi nodded yes, and my mother said yes.
There are different types of concentration camps. For example, a labor camp forced political prisoners, disabled people, homeless, mentally ill, or religiously distinct others to do significant labor without enough food. The majority of the Jews were emaciated. The prisoners at the concentration camp slept on wood bunks, 4 to 6 on one bed, and they woke up to being tortured. The Nazis believed in a theory called the ideology of race created by Alfred Rosenberg. They concluded that a person's characteristics, attitude, abilities, behavior, and appearance depended on their race. The Nazis thought that no individual could be able to overcome their qualities, meaning throughout generations, those qualities were inherited. Their character affected how the person thought, like the creativity, organization, and intelligence. Joseph Mengele was highly influenced by Alfred Rosenberg's racial theories. Upon arriving at the Auschwitz concentration camp in 1943, he began experimenting on live Jewish prisoners. Mengele's mission was to increase the birth rate of the Aryan race. Every morning, 3,000 twins woke up at 6 o'clock a.m. It was mandatory for them to report per roll call. Afterwards, they ate a small breakfast. Then Mengele arrived to inspect the twins. Many of the children enjoyed his presence, calling him Uncle Mengele, and loved when he gave out candy. Sometimes he even played with them. They weren't required to do hard work and had free time for soccer or makeshift schools. But every day after they were picked up in a couple of trucks, each twin had their blood drawn. They underwent multiple secret medical experiments. They undressed and were measured, standing next to each other. Their anatomy was observed closely, and the observations lasted for several hours a day. Sometimes their blood was traded with another twin, or painful injections were put in their eyes as an attempt to change the iris color. They could get injections into the spine, or surgeries performed like organ removal and amputation without anesthesia. They would even be conjoined with their twin sibling. The operations could involve purposely spreading diseases like typhus and tuberculosis. These often killed one of the twins, and Mengele would examine the effects of the bacteria.
They would tie both of my arms to restrict the blood flow, take a lot of blood from my left arm, and give me a minimum of 5 injections into my right arm. Those were the deadly ones. The rumor was in Auschwitz that these contains drugs, diseases, and germs. Next morning, Mengele came in with 4 other doctors. He never ever examined me, just looked at my fever chart, and then he declared, laughing sarcastically, saying, "Too bad, she's so young, she has only 2 weeks to live." I knew he was right, but I refused to die.
Twins like Renate and Rene Gutman underwent experiments by Mengele. They lived in Prague before 1940, when the twins' family was sent to Auschwitz. Renate was separated from her brother and was taken to the camp's hospital, where she was tattooed with the number 70917. She was measured and x-rayed. Renate then was strapped to a table and cut. She was injected with chemicals that made her throw up and have diarrhea. Renate's twin brother, Rene, was separated from Renate. He was put into barracks with other boys who were mostly twins. Sometimes he would be taken to a hospital even if he wasn't sick. Once he watched several Soviet and Polish soldiers being shot in a pit outside. Then, in January of 1945, Russian and American forces started to come to Auschwitz. The Nazis tried to hide their crimes and dismantle the gas chambers. They blew the concentration camps up with dynamite. The captors ordered healthy prisoners to flee the camp on the death march of Auschwitz to escape the Allied forces, and left 7,000 weaker prisoners to starve. On the death march, those who showed any sign of weaknesses, like stopping to catch their breath, were beaten or killed. On January 27, 1945, the Red Army found thousands of prisoners who were almost dead, children who were experimented on, 7.7 tons of human hair, and over 1 million clothing items in total. Mengele managed to escape imprisonment after World War II ended. He first went underground and worked as a farm stableman in Bavaria for 4 years. Then in 1959, he made his way to South America and became a citizen in Paraguay, renaming himself as Jose Mengele. He moved to Brazil, where he met up with a former Nazi member, Wolfgang Gerhard. In 1985, Mengele died of a stroke while swimming under the name of Gerhard. This genocide left hundreds of survivors in severe physical pain and mental pain. Survivors of Joseph Mengele's experiments were left with unnecessary amputations, blindness, damage to the organs, or being severely malnourished. Jewish survivors struggled to regain stability after the Holocaust. Many moved to countries like Israel or the United States to restart their lives as free individuals. Thomas Bürgenthal, a survivor from Auschwitz, was able to continue his life, and he became very successful. He was a specialist in international law and human rights.